Hi, this is Manju. I have recently concluded my mains of 2021 on January 16. So this is an overall synopsis of how my mains went and how my experience and what I learned in this mains. This was my first mains. So overall it has a huge learning curve. So I will share my experience paper by paper. So just a background to the mains preparation itself. After prelims, I had taken break for like 5 to 6 days, and immediately I started preparation of essay and ethics first, along with optional. So overall, I felt that the time was very much limited this time. The number of days were only around 90 or less than that. So you had to choose like where to focus on, where not to. You didn't have the freedom to sufficiently give your time to all the papers. So overall, the actual mains experience, I will tell from the preparation of the paper between the prelims and mains, and also on the day of the exam how it went. So first paper, as you all know, mains, UPSC mains has 9 papers overall, in which 2 papers are not evaluated into your score. The first paper which we wrote was essay. My majority of the essay preparation I had done after prelims only. So I had written mock essays for 3 or 4 mock essays I had given. Overall, the feedback I got was that my philosophical essay was good, and the actual the other topics which we usually get like environment and something like water resources or something, I was lacking in the structure and preparation. So overall, my essay preparation was like I had analyzed the toppers' essays for like 7 to 8 toppers. I had picked specifically one topper whose background I felt like matched mine, and I had stuck that. This was my strategy. I don't know it will work or not, because I will, once I get the score, I'll get to know if it worked. So I had chosen specifically one topper's essay, and I tried to write in a similar fashion. Because I felt that if some strategy is already tested and tried and it worked, that the topper whose essay I modeled all my essays was Vikram Garewal. He got 162 like 2 years back. So I had mostly practiced my essays based on his essays only. In fact, the content I have also taken from his essays only. And because his hobby was book reading and I was also reading books, so I thought that I don't have to put extra effort in gaining some new information for essays, like mugging up quotes or something. So overall, this was my strategy. And on the day of essay, it was the first ever paper. So what happens is, usually you are little extra worried about the things you carry, like small things, like do you need to carry the pad or something. And also most of the times you would face the adjustments of bench during this paper. Like always we should carry a small carton of paper, because what happened during the paper, I had sat on the table and the table was too high for my seat. This looks very small, but it is a big thing when you're writing 3 hours continuously mains paper. So I had requested the invigilator to exchange my table with something, but already the exam was starting in 10 minutes, he couldn't do that. So I somehow adjusted by stuffing in papers under the table. But after 10 minutes into the essay, the bench was shaking very badly. So luckily the person in front of me was not present, so I shifted to the table. But usually most of the centers, and I have spoke with other people who have given mains in other centers like Delhi, Indore, this is very quite common, and it can hamper your actual exam thing, like simple thing like how the table and the chair, they have infrastructure problems. Another infrastructure problem I faced in the center is the bathroom. There was only one bathroom because it was a women's college, and both men and women had to use that one washroom, and the line was so huge that like it was half an hour before the paper, the line was extending till the rooms. So washroom difficulties were there. And also when I have seen in other YouTube videos that people advise you to carry a pillow and go to the center. I thought that was very like funny, or it is, but in the actual exam I had used two pillows to set my height to write the exam. It was very comfortable. Initially I thought that it is just something nerds do and it is too much over the top, but it was very helpful to me. Like some people were given normal benches, some were given table and normal chairs, plastic chairs. So the height was not at all enough. So I put 2 pillows and then only I could comfortably write the paper. And these small things are very important because even it can definitely affect handwriting and speed very much. So actual essay paper, just after beginning of the paper, like at 9 o'clock, I opened the paper. My strategy was not to look at the second half of the topics, only just see the first half, or else like your brain will be too much occupied in all the topics. So I had hidden the second half of the section, first 4 topics, and usually how I selected the topic is I did what, where, when, why, and if I could answer all the questions sufficiently, I select the topic, because sometimes what happens, the topic itself something is related to your background and you get super excited, you end up choosing the topic, but actually when you start writing, what it was asked might be something else. A perfect example is the culture and civilization example essay given last year. Anybody from anthro background would think that that is something from their optional and would have chosen that, but it is not as it looks like. So ideally what I feel is, and also there are some times that you had prepared for a topic and there are 4 topics given, a topic comes from the similar words come from the topic you have prepared, and you end up choosing that thinking that you know it, but once you start writing the essay, sometimes you do not have the content. A perfect example is many of the people, 90% of the people prepare women empowerment topic for essay. So when in this year paper, when this topic was given, that the hand that rocks the cradle or something, people has subconsciously written about women empowerment only, when it would have been something else. So what I feel is, when choosing a topic, we have to be very much objective, rational and very neutral. We shouldn't be biased towards our optional, towards our likes, hobbies or previous. So we should do a what, where, when analysis. If you are sufficiently, check number 1 is you should be sufficiently able to answer all the what, when, why of the topic. Second, you should be able to know the meaning of each and every word given in the topic at least. A perfect example is this year in section A of essay, there was a topic which had a word called chimera. Despite my GRE, like I had prepared for GRE earlier and my vocabulary is really good, but still I didn't know the meaning of chimera. So it's a huge risk to take a guess on the meaning of the word and write a whole essay based on that. And you wouldn't get much angles also. So ideally, the selection of the topic should be really ideal. And if there are 2 topics which sufficiently answers what, when, where questions, then you should, in the end, third check I do is something that makes you happy. There are certain topics which generally you are excited to write about that. So when I was writing mock, something related to environment, women or philosophical essay, I used to be very happy writing about. Something regarding technology or democracy, I used to hate writing them. So like after writing 3-4 pages, I used to think that what am I writing. So this year I had, luckily this time both the topics were philosophical. So I was very happy. So what I did this year, essay experience was, I think out of all the papers, I did essay the best, because content wise we don't know until the results come, because what you're writing is subjective and the correction is subjective. But why I felt it went good is, the time management was, it's good. What I did, first 30 minutes I did brainstorming for the first essay, and 1 hour I wrote the first essay, second essay half an hour brainstorming, and other 1 hour the essay got finished. So time management of essay is very important. Also, because we interact with other people who have already given the other essay paper, the other mistake some people did in essay was giving too much time to the paper, first essay, and the time was limited for the second essay. Like first essay they ended up writing for 2 hours, second essay they had only one hour. And also most of the people found it's like a googly thinking both the essays are philosophical, because most of the people in general do read statistics, mug up some quotes regarding very familiar topics. So when the topics were extremely abstract and people were very much confused. Also, people would assume that people from philosophy optional would do extraordinarily well in the essay, but also whenever there is a positive, there is a negative attached to it. If you're writing if your background is philosophy, the entire essay might look up very unidirectional in a philosophical way. So the other dimension might be missing. So essay paper, I felt that the only paper which you wouldn't feel any time constraint is essay paper. Sufficiently you have enough time to write the paper if you are managing the time well. Then also the best part about essays, it is only one paper per day. You won't physically feel any tiredness or something, and you have a half day to rest. Then comes the next day. Next 2 days you have 4 papers back to back. So second day, day 2, you had GS2 and GS1 and GS2, and day 3 it was GS3 and GS4. To be honest, you even after 1-2 days also, you wouldn't actually remember what you wrote for the answers in that time, for GS papers at least, because the time is so less and the questions are so more. You actually don't remember what you had written. I vaguely remember the introductions I have written, but actually there's no time to even remember. So what GS1 paper was fairly easy. The topics were very familiar, like Bhakti movement. I felt GS1 paper was fairly easy in the sense the topics were familiar, nothing extraordinary, like you have to make up some stuff or you have to fill 2-3 pages with something you don't know at all. So, but all these 4 papers, you would find time is very much a constraint, unlike the essay paper, and the most time taking consuming paper was GS4. I had interacted with 7 girls who had written GS4, and 6 of them have not completed the paper at all, ethics paper at least. This year ethics paper is extraordinarily lengthy because while practicing, this was my first main, so I couldn't give much mock tests of GS, but what I did is, because I've heard that even completion of the paper is a challenge, I had made sure that I just did 3-4 mocks of ethics, so that if ethics paper is completed on time, more or less the other papers would be completed on time. But even despite that, I found ethics paper, you had to, if you are completing the paper, then you have to compromise on the quality of the papers as well. So first we'll stick to paper 1. GS1 was fairly familiar topics, and the time management, the problem is always there for all the GS papers, but fairly you could write something. I didn't feel like tensed or anything. It was very convenient to write 20 questions paper. GS2, honestly I am unable to recollect what I had written, but I remember IR topics, 4 questions same, and IR I had prepared 25 topics, the hot topics trending last mains, AUKUS, Quad Plus, and in that fairly direct questions came from IR, nothing extraordinary. Like IR, at least most expected questions came out of all the 4, the latest AUKUS and all. So I found I could write something actually remembered in these questions at least. The remaining GS questions were polity wise and all. It was more like half of the answer you could write with something you know, half you have to make up so that you have to fill the remaining part of the exam. Honestly speaking, when we see the solutions of the mock tests or the people telling that you have to draw this diagram and all, honestly in the real life exam scenario, you write very average answer in that time. I felt that this is the only thing you can do in that time. Like overall, after writing all the GS papers, my experience is you actually don't need so much knowledge in GS at all. You just need to fairly present something legible and something which is like filling the pages. Like it's hard to impossible to write perfect content which you had remembered in the paper. So whenever I after writing mains, at least what I feel is, especially GS papers, answer writing in itself is highly overrated. Like the structures, the diagrams and all, very few you can draw in the actual exam scenario. I did draw diagrams, but it's not like you could draw extraordinary, very simple hub and spoke diagrams is only possible in that time. And also writing 1 paper per day and writing 2 papers per day is fairly different. Like if you are writing, probably if I had written GS2 paper on a separate day in the morning, the answer would have been quality would have been much higher. You would have that little bit of physical tiredness also. I see physically people are getting shoulder pain and backache while writing the papers. And also in between you have 2 hours. Most of the times people would come out and lie down and they would read for the other paper. And 95% of the time outside people are studying for next paper. Like I had assumed that it will be like, I mean, you don't have to study in the last minute because it's very abstract, but people will be studying till the last minute, 95% of the people. And also, usually I was somebody who was independent. I was going to write exams alone only. I never thought you need support or parents or somebody to write, but actually mains exam, you need somebody to be there with you, somebody to get food for you, because physically it's tiring, and in between you only have 2 hours. Again you have to run around, and next day you have to write 2 papers. Anything misses, some small thing like ID card or something, and food somebody has to arrange in between. Usually in the main centers, many people are providing food there, but I had taken home food, so I don't know. But here, somebody you need to be there, some relative or friend, that would be very much helpful. And also, and then GS2, I felt most of the questions, honestly, I don't remember. IR though, it directly the questions came from expected questions, and some questions were like only 3 questions were like that you hadn't studied earlier, but somehow you can make up something and write, so it was fine. And GS3, I felt out of the quality wise, GS3 was little on the tougher side, because they had asked some random questions like blue LED, which you had to write 20 markers on that. So ultimately you would end up writing random stuff on it, because nobody knows blue LED specifically for 3 pages. So GS3 was little time taking. Here I didn't find time constraint at all. GS3 I found was struggling to complete the paper, and I have heard that 3 or 4 people, like, they have missed at least 1 question at least. Now afterwards, GS4 is actually the most toughest to write physically, because continuously you are writing 5 papers till now. This is the time when if you have slight back pain here, that back pain would amplify and it would become worse in essay paper. Actually physically it was very tiring, and by any chance, by mistake also, if you hadn't had proper sleep this day, your essay paper, your ethics paper is gone. Sleep is so much necessary. One of the biggest mistakes people do is like not sleeping properly here, and actually sleeping in between these 2 GS papers that night is actually a challenge, because your mind is overdrive thinking about all these things, and that load, actually night you can't sleep properly. Like, and also there is this excitement, nervousness of next day writing 2 papers. I found it so hard to sleep, and I remember others were telling the same too, like they were planning to take sleeping tablets or something for sleeping that night. So I tried all my level best to, like, drinking chamomile tea or something to sleep. This day actually sleeping was very much difficult. Then GS4, it was physically tiring, and your head is kind of heavy writing too many papers. That's why maybe I hadn't, you should give proper mock test practice after prelims from mains. And also one thing I learned from this experience is, whatever answer writing style you have to develop, the changes, the feedback you get from mentors, all this can be done only before prelims. After prelims, you don't have time to write a test, and uploading the test also, you are thinking that it's a waste of time. Like, I didn't have time to even upload the mock test I'm writing on website. Scanning takes 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you don't have that much time between prelims to mains. So, and you won't have that liberty to go and talk to somebody, talk about your answers or something, because each day is counted. So whatever your answer writing style, handwriting style, and how you are planning to approach, everything has to be ideally done before prelims only. Only the time management part, if you are able to complete on time, and writing back-to-back tests, that experience only, I think ideally it should be done between prelims to mains. So GS4, why the paper was lengthy is, the initial 8 questions you have ABC, 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 and case studies ideally, till last year it used to be ABC, 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 all the case studies. This time there was A, B, C, D also. So even though the number of pages you have to fill is same, but you are thinking, wasting time, and not wasting time, like you need time to think for another extra question. And that is like all the case studies, there was one extra question. So that's why I found that paper was lengthy. Ideally, earlier case studies, you had ABC, 3 answers to be written in a decent manner. Now you have to write in a less quality and 4 different answers regarding the case study. And the case studies also were, I found it really different from what I had practiced before mains. I found this paper kind of weird this time. I was expecting to write much better, but I couldn't write because the nature of the questions were like that. And also the initial theoretical part, the questions were kind of repetitive. after I have remember writing 3-4 answers writing similar content, because the questions, ideally earlier they used to ask very different questions, like something regarding integrity, some question, or something regarding corruption or corporate governance. The variation was there. This time most of the answers were surrounding around that leadership like qualities. Like 4 answers were regarding these leadership like qualities only. So the kind of, in that time you could only think the same content and it was kind of getting repetitive. So overall I felt the ethics paper was very much tough than the last time. And also many people had left 30 marks, 40 marks. I found very few people who had completed ethics paper. And if you have to complete the paper, you have to write really bad answers. Then only you could complete the answer. If you are planning to write perfect answers, then you cannot complete the paper actually. And also I had asked one of my friend who has written mains earlier, what if there is a time constraint in this paper? He had suggested that even the case studies quality you can compromise, but try to write better answers in that first theoretical questions. I had followed that, but I don't know if it worked or not this time. So overall physically tiring, but what I felt is answer writing is overrated in these papers at least, because you don't have to worry so much about how to present the answer, because the question itself says what you have to present in the answer. If there are 2 questions, 10 marker, ideally you are breaking the question into 2 and writing. So it's not much like a skill you need to, I mean it was, before writing mains I used to be extremely scared about answer writing, that do I have sufficient writing skills or something, but honestly GS is overrated. Then we come to optional where actually answer writing is necessary. Then you have 5 days break after this GS4 paper. Every year it is the same, but I think 3 years back the papers used to be back to back, and I think it would have been even more torturous. At least you had 5 days to study for the optional, but what happens in this 5 days is, initial 1 day you are trying to recover from this trauma of writing 5 papers. 1 day you feel so physically weak that you are not able to actually sit and study. Like before the essay paper, the energy I had, it's like depleted into half after writing these 5 papers. Basically you are in lot of Telegram groups, right? Most of the people were telling the same day. You think that you have 5 days, you plan 2 revisions, 3 revisions or something, and GS4 ke baad, that night you do not get sleep at all. Like I couldn't sleep till night 3, because sleep is very much necessary, because you are sleeping till late night 3, next day morning the quality is affected of preparation. And I was constantly messaging all my friends and who has written mains, none of them could sleep because brain went into overdrive, thinking, writing. It needed some time to cool off. So that night sleep was difficult. That day people could relax properly and try to just relax for some time. Next 1 day, literally nobody could study properly. Why I said nobody is in the group, I was constantly in mains answer writing groups. They were also messaging the same, unable to study, optional is in 4 days. So I spoke to somebody who was already written also last year. It was rank 11. So he told that do pehla din to aise hi jata hai, you cannot study physically, you need that rest. And also I was always physically fit. I was never thinking that writing an exam would make me physically weak. But these days I was drinking ORS, having protein biscuits. I felt that physically I am running a marathon or something. Here actually physically also you need to maintain diet and things. All these are very irrelevant in prelims. Prelims you don't bother about any of these things like food or sleep, but here it becomes very important, because 1 day lack of sleep, and even during papers I used to feel hungry a lot most of the time. Even 5 minutes distraction, it can cost 1 answer. So 1 day of that 5 days was gone. You couldn't study physically. I was just lying on the bed trying to recollect something. I had made micro notes of anthropology of entire paper 2 in like 70 pages. So I had that folders ready, that 5 days, planning I did, this was after prelims only. After prelims I decided that these 5 days are very crucial, because what happens is, how much ever 2 months you are giving for anthropology also, after taking, here you are taking 5 days, you are not studying anthro at all. Before this, at least 10 days you would be only studying GS. When you have papers in GS, you won't be touching optionals. Like mentally, it's psychologically also you can't. So almost 15 days gap, and anybody who's into preparation knows that 15 days gap, you forget a lot of things. You lose the flow of that subject. So I had made micro notes of 70 pages that at least all topics I should touch. But this 1 day I was struggling to read even that, even though you know that after 4 days you have optional paper, which is kind of deciding your entire lives. So next 4 days somehow you pick up. One day people say that try not to touch, just rest, and this is the day you have to start revising again, and whatever the best you could do for next 4 days. And next you have 4 papers. This is day number 4. Here you have English and Telugu papers. First paper is Telugu actually, I mean the language paper, and English paper. These papers are the most relaxed papers, and you won't feel any physically tiredness or time constraints or anything. This is more like relaxed day, you don't have to worry about. Even Telugu, I was not out of touch. I had never studied Telugu at all in my school, but still I could fairly manage. This little bit I was more scared for Telugu than it was necessary. I felt that it was because people had said that it is like CSAT, sometimes you might fail also in Telugu paper also. So I was giving 3-4 days in that entire prelims to mains. 5 days I have given to Telugu, and I was listening to Telugu songs and during breaks, and I had written 2-3 essays. I mean, I couldn't recollect most of the words, but they said that fairly manageable. 75 marks is English, you don't have to worry at all. That day you go and write, that's enough. And this day physically it's not at all tiring. Then comes the optional day. This is when this is something which nobody had told me before is this is the time you would again face lot of infrastructural problems, because all these days your exam hall is same, but during the optional day it changes, because all the optional people are taken to separate rooms, anthropology. So there's lot of confusion, people are running around arranging things, you might get bad chairs, tables. This nobody had told me. My anthro paper 1 was kind of very much, I am sad writing, like it was kind of a disaster, because it's not my mistake at all, it was because of these issues. That day there was a power cut, and so the bell was not ringing. So until the bell rings, they never give the paper. So that invigilator was waiting for the bell to ring, and there was a power cut. So the paper was 7 minutes late, and 7 minutes is a lot of time in mains. I think even in prelims, but it's in mains it's like an answer. So all the papers I didn't feel any, when some people said that especially when somebody writing mains for the first time, they feel very much nervousness while writing. Even first answer they are finding it very nervous to think about or something. But that wise I didn't find any kind of nervousness. But anthro paper 1 I was very much nervous, because the paper was 10 minutes late, and this is very unfortunate. And also I heard that other centers also, a lot of the exam paper was late in Indore center also, Delhi center also. I had friends who were written there. So you have to be mentally prepared for this. So always ensure that when you're writing anthropology optional papers, at least 5 minutes you just leave that time and try to write in that time, because 5 minutes goes in invigilator coming in, signature, writing, putting sign and these things miscellaneous. So better to write in lesser constraints, so that day it would have been easier. And also the paper came 10 minutes late, and that day what happened, because the paper was anyways coming, one guy went to fill the water bottle. He came and he broke his glass bottle next to my table only. So all around the table there was water, broken glass pieces. I felt that like it was very unfortunate timing, everything was happening. So little bit I panicked, also because the paper was late, and everybody started shouting that we need 15 minutes extra grace time. They started shouting, but what happens whenever they give the paper, everybody starts writing, so then nobody talks anything. So and what happened, we started writing at 9:10, 9:15 ke beech mein, and they haven't confirmed that we would give grace time. So I remember writing 120 marker, and already it was 10 o'clock, and that made me very much afraid. Kind of I was nervous while writing entire paper 1. And also in the end, how much ever you know that you are given extra 10 minutes or 7 minutes, that time you are so scared that you end up finishing the paper at 12 o'clock only, even with less quality answers. So I had finished almost the paper in 12 o'clock. Then they had announced that 7 minutes extra grace time we would give. By that time I had already written the answers. So I felt that little bit I messed up in paper 1. But I could complete all the answers. And also you know what, I felt answer writing skills are the most necessary in anthro paper more than GS papers. But if you see the YouTube videos, all the content available, more focus is on answer writing in GS papers only. And because here GS, they give 1 or 2 lines of question, and already you know what to write, the structure and everything. In Anthro, in at least 10 marker, there are just 2 words given, 2 keywords, and you have to brainstorm and think how would you write in that 1.5 page. So I felt that the skills are required more in Anthro paper, and also here you wouldn't worry about much to fill in the pages, because you know that first 10 questions 2 sides, next 20, but here there is this issue of 20 marker, 15 marker, so slightly there is a confusion between, I remember writing a question thinking there is another extra page left and already the paper was completed. So bottom line is, and Anthro paper 2, fairly the questions were very familiar, the quality wise and everything. Anybody who had sufficiently completed the syllabus would have been able to attempt all the questions. However, paper 2, the 10 markers were little, it needed some brainstorming, which was out of the box little. But overall, my conclusion is, if I have to, so overall, kind of it is physically tiring also. Mains, you have to think about your health and everything. You can't afford to fall sick or something. Prelims you can manage with any bad health or injury or something. Mains you cannot actually. I have a friend who had a disc injury before mains and he couldn't write the exam only. Like that physically, and this time many people had in fact written this mains with COVID also. So that I remember many people taking paracetamol during the breaks while writing the papers. So I felt that mains is kind of wholesome preparation which we need to do holistically. And also, if I were to give if I have to give mains again, I would focus more on optional and its answer writing and focus more on that rather than GS. But however, ensure that I write continuously back-to-back GS papers instead of writing 1 paper per day. So overall, this was my experience, and also this is a very personal experience. It is highly varied to interpretations, and there are many others with different perspectives. So if this is my interview what mains experience, and I'm looking forward for my results. I don't know if I'll clear or not. So if you have any doubts, let me know.